That is a very pertinent question now that we have spent almost 2 years in this kind of pandemic. And we have done a lot of learning all across, and retail enterprises in particular had their own set of challenges along with other industries which are there. But I would say that retail has done a great job in terms of standing up to the promise of the customer by making sure that food and other essential items are provided to them. But what has come out is the adoption of technology by the consumers has been so fast that most of the retailers have not been able to cope up with the change in consumer behavior. And let me give you a little example. There were kind of ups and downs in the consumer patterns, in which when there was lockdown, there was a huge demand on the digital commerce. When there were relaxations which were there, people used to then walk into the stores. And so the volatility in the supply chain was so high that most of the retailers were kind of swinging from pushing digital commerce to going back to stores and things like that. And so this new concept of omni-channel, which was always there, has been predominantly accelerated in terms of adoption. Omni-channel commerce, which is nothing but trying to have a unified customer experience and customer journey, was something which was being talked for the last 10 years. But because of COVID, the adoption of omni-channel has become so large that statistics shows that almost 85% people have kind of shopped in both the channels, which was sub 20% in pre-COVID times, which means that there is an increase of almost 60-65% of people who have done shopping in both the channels, whereas there are still 15% who have done only in one channel. But 85% of the people have done shopping in both the channels, which is a very, very big realization which has happened. So I would say that this is something which is a reality. Omni-channel is going to be a reality, and it will continue in the days to come. And so retailers need to be prepared for giving an omni-channel experience to their consumers, so that they can win the hearts and provide a better experience to their consumers. See, blockchain as a concept has been there for quite a while, and I think in the last few years we have kind of seen a lot of adoption of blockchain. So I don't want to go into the crypto side of the blockchain, which is a big thing, but let me see where the use cases of blockchain are in the industrial context. One of the very important kind of aspect around blockchain is it provides a lot of provenance and transparency of data and sharing it across your channel partners, which is to me the biggest kind of use case which most of the guys are solving. And so it has started from a financial domain, in which if there are smart contracts, if there are agreements which needs to be shared across the various parties in a network or a supply chain, there have been private networks or public networks which have been created, by which you are able to drive that adoption of sharing of information across your channel partners. So to me, that is a very important aspect. The second important aspect that I've seen is around traceability, and particularly in retail, with the advent and importance of trying to understand the source of the products. So, for example, we were talking about organic, we're talking about local products, we are talking about vegan products, and so there is a new wave of healthy products which are coming up, and because of that, it is very important that you need to understand and trace where the each and every products are coming from. And so IBM has already launched something called as IBM Food Trust, which is quite successful, in which it tries to bring in suppliers from all over the world and then try to trace the product right to the farm, right to the land where it has been produced, and things like that. So there are these kind of use cases, either to bring in transparency, either to bring traceability, which are quite prominent. The third one, which is quite interesting and which is catching up, it is somewhat related to the crypto boom which is happening all over the world, is how can I reward my customers using digital tokens, either through NFTs or through crypto underlying cryptocurrencies. And there are a lot of platforms which are coming up, which are kind of using digital rewards or digital backed assets as rewards for their services and the offerings which are out there. That is still very, very early and a very niche use case that is out there. But I believe that that could be one thing which I would really closely watch about. And if crypto and the digital assets, the NFT and the digital assets that you talk about become more mainstream, it will be very important to provide that as a reward to all the customers who come to shop in the retail context. And so I'm very optimistic. Blockchain is going to really help in terms of traceability, bringing in transparency across the supply chain, thereby reducing the cost of operations. Well, there are two or three large themes which have emerged. So obviously, the so-called work from anywhere as a theme has become so much more prominent, and so that has kind of opened up a huge number of opportunities for businesses in the Middle East. And now, what was not considered to be very, very common in the past, now everybody is looking at it. And so what happens is agile as a way of working was not very prominent in this part of the world, whereas the other parts, be it the US or the Europe, agile ways of working were quite prominent. And so because of this work from anywhere concept, we have seen digital technologies which are being adopted all across. There were kind of remote distributed teams which are there all across, and they would kind of collaborate using agile ways of working. So that to me is a big change from a digital transformation perspective. And the second is the importance of digital talent. The importance of investing in people to build digital talent, be it in terms of design thinking, in terms of agile ways of working, being in terms of innovation, being in terms of collaboration and using digital tools for collaboration. All these things were kind of brought to the forefront for a lot of people in the Middle East region. And I think it's a very welcome move. I'm seeing when I speak to my CIO friends, what I see is people are now getting more aligned to global ways of working and trying to adopt these new ways. And so if you see the entire digital transformation is all about awakening the workforce, trying to imbibe digital tools, digital practices and digital capabilities within the workforce. And obviously what it gives is your ability to then do things which are like enabling your cloud transformation journey, which is a very, very important part of any digital transformation journey. Your ability to use data and make your organization data driven, which is another very important aspect. So I know 2 years back, before the pandemic, the importance of data was not very prominent in a lot of enterprises. But obviously, post pandemic, when I speak to a lot of executives, almost everybody believes that data driven decision making and putting things on the cloud are a couple of the top priorities which they want to work on. And at the end, I would say this has to be all done under the context of high security and high kind of confidentiality of data across, right? And so the importance of security also has come to the forefront, which was not there in the past. So cloud transformation, data driven decision making, and importance of security along with the digital capabilities are the things that are being looked at by Middle East enterprises. And I think this is going to be a game changer event for all the enterprises here. Well, there's no one technology I would say, but there are a few headwinds which are coming along, and a couple of them are all determined by I would say the change in consumer behavior, the change in the way consumer is reacting, and they're trying to do things. So one important aspect around that is is the rapid change of consumer preferences. Consumers are kind of looking at new ways of interacting digitally, and that to me is the biggest change which has happened in the last 2 years. Consumers have adopted digital left, right, and center, and what would have happened in about 5 to 7 years? Obviously, digital was there and is going to be there, but the adoption of digital in their hands was not that prominent, or it was going very slow. Now, because of pandemic, the adoption of digital has become so fast, and we have kind of shortened the entire life cycle from about 5 to 7 years to about I would say 2 to 3 years. And so there are huge power and potential which has come in the hands of the consumers, and so the power is shifting from the retail to the consumer, and the consumer is calling the shots. And so interactive commerce, social commerce, and more I would say virtual reality. We are all hearing about metaverse as a new big theme, right? Now that will change the whole concept of how you interact with your consumer. So metaverse is going to bring in a huge amount of new set of capabilities which is out there, and metaverse along with Web.3, these are two important aspects which is going to change the way we do digital commerce, the way we engage with the customers, the way we interact with the customers, and how we understand and analyze the data of the consumer. So these are two things which I'm closely watching on, metaverse and Web3.0, and how these two things will merge to create something which is very, very different from what we are seeing in terms of the consumers' behavior and offerings which are there. So I'm very excited. The next 10 years is going to be moving. We will not call going forward retail companies. They will predominantly be consumer companies, and they will be sitting with a huge amount of consumer data, interacting in a very, very new and a different way with Metaverse and Web 3.0 underlying them, and they will be then driving commerce and interaction in a very, very different way. So I'm very, very excited. I believe that this is a game-changing moment for retail companies to move from doing just commerce to become customer-centric organizations.